Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pool here on Comic Relief Cast. I'm your host Jake.
And I'm your host Josh, and this is What Are We Reading?
And we are going to waste no time, guys. There is a lot to offer from Marvel this week, and we're going to get straight into it with Spider-Man City at War #2, written by Dennis Hopeless. The art is done by Bandini and Curiel. And I have not played the game in its full. I have not started it, played bits and pieces. And I like this book. I thought the first issue was a little bit mediocre. It didn't really do a whole lot for me. I really like this one. It's kind of told from the perspective of Miles Morales, and I thought it worked pretty well.
As someone who has played the game, I think one of the best parts about the game is the story, so it is kind of nice to have this in to a story way. I'm jealous of the people who hadn't played the game because they do get to read this story for the first time and it's new. But if you have played the game, there are still some new factors. You get to find out a little bit more about Miles, what he's doing during some of the stuff that you've seen in the game.
Yeah, and a few things going on are a little bit like what's going on in his own solo series with like writing a journal. But with that, our grading system for this week is Viking Heavens. I'm going to go ahead and give Spider-Man City at War #2 2.95 Viking Heavens.
I'm right there with you, 2.95.
All right, I'm going to move it on to Star Wars TIE Fighter #1 by Jody Hauser, and the art is done by Antonio and a few other people. It's also got an exclusive preview of the companion novel Star Wars Alphabet Squadron that's going to be at the back of the book. I didn't read that. I just read the comic book versions. There's basically two stories going on here. It's told from the perspective of actual Imperial TIE Fighter pilots. And I think it's kind of an interesting twist. We never really think to consider things from their point of view. We usually just, on the rebellion side, going, hey, stick it to the man, fuck the Empire, and go rebels. This kind of grounds these characters a little bit more. My biggest detriment to the book, or not mine, but the biggest detriment to the book, is that there's a lot of weird names and a lot of faces look exactly the same, so I'm never really sure who's talking and who's doing what. But there are two separate stories in this book, and I gotta say, I think I like the second one just a little bit more, but that might also be because it's a little bit shorter. But with this one, I'm going to go ahead and give it 2.4 Viking Heavens.
All right, I read Wolverine Infinity Watch #3 by Jerry Duggan and Andy MacDonald. It's kind of the same thing as the past two issues. You're hoping you get some answers. You really don't get any answers. It was still kind of a fun issue, but it's just a bland, generic comic. I'm giving it 2.4 Viking Heavens.
All right, we're going to be moving on to West Coast Avengers #10 by Kelly Thompson, and this is the end of the West Coast Avengers series going on right now. I think reading this book, you can tell it was cut off short. It was a little premature. They tried to wrap it up as best they could, but there's a lot of things being set up throughout the last 9 issues, and Kelly Thompson really didn't get to wrap it all up the way she wanted to. And unfortunately, this is not the stellar ending, this big bang of an ending that I wanted. It does go a little weird towards the end, I will say. And that really wasn't my cup of tea, but I unfortunately think for a series that started off so well and so surprisingly, this really fizzled out for me.
Yeah, it does. I think it would have probably been better if it didn't get canceled. I think that if she actually could have finished. Yeah, but with it being so canceled and so abrupt, I mean, it does kind of... It just makes it feel really bad. Yeah,
like the last 3 issues, you introduce a new character who gets new powers, and you don't get to flesh out every single person. I honestly don't feel like I could name everybody by first name. Like their aliases, yes, but by their first names in this book, no. I don't feel like they all got to be fully realized. So West Coast Avengers #10 is going to get it's going to get a pretty bland 2.5 Viking Heavens out of me. West Coast Avengers as a whole, because those first 5 or 6 issues I thought were really interesting and really fun to read. I'm going to say West Coast Avengers as a whole gets 3.25 Viking Heavens.
I'm going to give this issue 2.5 Viking Heavens. The series as a whole, I'm going to go about 3.5. Part of me wants to go 3.6, but I'm going to go 3.5 just because it wasn't just this issue that was kind of a downfall.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the Magnificent Miss Marvel issue 2, written by Saladin Ahmed, and the artist is Minkyu Jung. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And surprisingly, I liked issue 1 enough to pick up issue 2. I figured, you know what, I'll do you guys a little bit of service, figure out if issue 2 is a good follow-up to issue 1. This is a character I have never read solo before, so this is my first time picking up her solo series and checking it out. I don't recognize a lot of the supporting cast of this book, but I don't feel like I need to in order to understand what's going on in the book as a whole, and I found this one to be charming. It's fun. I think I see the appeal of Kamala Khan as a character in general. I think that her quote unquote villains, I think there's something very grounded and realistic about who they are and their connections to Kamala, and I dig that. But then this book kind of devolves into Something I'm not a big fan of just in general, this trope of the chosen one or a prophecy, things like that. Not big on that, and that kind of threw me off. So for that, I'm going to give this one 2.7 Viking Heavens.
All right, I read Amazing Spider-Man 19.HU, part of the Hunted run. This one kind of, you're following the Lizard and him trying to find his boy. It wasn't a bad issue. It has Balancha. Is it Balancio?
Oh,
The
Bacalo.
artist, Bacalo? Yeah, Bacalo. My bad. It has Bacalo in the art. I'm not a huge fan of him when
Neither
he's on
am I.
Spider-Man. I don't like the way he draws the lizard, and this is a lizard-centric issue. It was good. It was not like a must-read for this event, and it wasn't as hard-hitting as 18.HU, but it still was a good issue. Yeah, I'm going to say that this is probably... I'm going to give this one... I would give it 3.0, but because of the art, I'm going to throw it down to about 2.8.
All right, moving on to Avengers No Road Home number 10. There's been one issue every week for 10 weeks. Here is the culmination, the end of the No Road Home. And how does it stack up, Josh? Personally, I think this really let down the ending. I think the ending was a giant letdown. This is coming from a guy who was really tooting the horn of No Road Home when it first started going. Those first 5 or 6 issues, I was really excited about. I really was on board with. And this one was just one of the most generic Disney princess, Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella endings I could have ever imagined for something that started off the way that it did. It took a lot of these characters that I was really interested in seeing how they kind of all threw together, and to realize that they basically became, just non-essential in any way. They weren't needed in any way. They were just kind of thrown in there, and they became needless in the book. I was really let down.
Now, I like this event in this last issue. I mean, it wasn't a bad issue to read, but ending the event on this note, it's doing what Marvel's been doing with events, and that's making it this nice ribbon around a story that just doesn't really do anything. You almost feel like you didn't really need to be reading this. There's no consequences to this. There's nothing new that comes out of it. And the ending of it was done very much like... It reminds me a lot of the end of Daredevil, where you.
I was just thinking that season 3.
Season 3.
Yeah.
You just kind of get to this point where you're like, it's like you could have just ended it, but instead you wanted to sit here and try to make it seem like it was all nice and happy.
Yeah, you get a nice happy ending.
You took it too long at that point. But yeah, it does. It's kind of like, it's not near as bad as Infinity Wars' ending.
No.
But it is it's the same kind of deal where it's like they made it too they just ended it really nicely and just put a bow on it and just go, there you go.
It was just too generic, two-dimensional, very black and white, cut and dry. This is good, this is evil. Good always triumphs over evil. And I went, this really, it missed a lot of the potential it could have had, and it really bums me out. The most interesting part of the way this book ends, though, is where it leaves our character, Conan, because that is intriguing, and I am curious about what happens there. And Hercules, I gotta say, not a fan of what's...
I'm not a fan of what they're doing with Hercules. I will say that there is some nice imagery in this of homages to
absolutely
older Marvel
just the Marvel
stuff.
universe as a whole.
Yeah. I will say that was kind of nice to see, but at the same time, it was like this could have just been like a small issue.
This issue really upset me. I'm going to give this issue by itself 2.2 Viking Heavens. As a whole, No Road Home does now its grading does get dragged down because of this last issue. As a whole, if this issue had really stuck the landing, if it had really just hit it hard home, I think you could have easily been looking at a 3.8 Viking Heavens from me for this series. But I'd say the last issue and maybe one other outlier really brings this one down, this whole event, to like a 3.4 Viking Heavens for me.
For this issue, I give it a 2.4 Viking Heavens. For the event as a whole, I take it down to about 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. It's still not. I'm not sad that I read it, but I just wish that they could have went somewhere else.
I really want a what if issue that just ends this thing completely differently.
Yeah. All
right, moving on to Star Wars: Age of Rebellion Special number 1. This one's got a lot of different writers. You got Simon Spurrier, and the artist is Caspar Wingard, Mark Guggenheim, Andrea Bacard, John Adams, and Chris O'Houlihan. There's 3 different stories. The first one's about IG-88, which I think is kind of an interesting character. They flesh him out to be kind of I don't know how you would really put this character. He's not good, he's not bad. Think of like the Vision, but a Vision without a conscience. You know what I mean? And I thought that was kind of a cool take. The Trial of Dagobah, which is all about Yoda, that was easily the most important and interesting story in this book. It's really Yoda on Dagobah, vowing to never use a lightsaber again, realizing his hubris and the way he failed the Jedi Order. He feels like it's on his shoulders. Something I never really got that feeling from the movies. I get this from this book, and I really appreciated that. And then the last one, Stolen Valor, is all about Biggs and Porkins, and it's a goofy little story. I mean, it does have a few poignant moments about war and what do you do after the war is over, things like that. But the art's a little goofy, and you're not really meant to take it too seriously. But for that, I think this Yoda one really makes it stand out. The IG-88 one's pretty good. I'm gonna give Star Wars Age of Rebellion Special number 1. I'm gonna go 3.0. I think a 3.0 is solid. Viking Heavens.
I read Miles Morales Spider-Man number 5 by Saladin Ahmed and Javier Garron. And it's still, I mean, if you're reading the Miles Morales storyline, you will not be disappointed. It's still good. It's the start of a new story arc. It gets pretty interesting at the end. It has me a little curious. I'm kind of wondering where it's going to go. But for the most part, Saladin Ahmed, I can't say this enough. He is perfect for writing for Miles Morales. With that being said, I'm going to give this book a 3.4 Viking Heavens.
All right. Moving on to Guardians of the Galaxy number 4 by Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw, and David Curiel. And this book, I mean, I look forward to Guardians of the Galaxy every time this book comes out. I love the team. I love all the players in this book. It's not your typical Guardians of the Galaxy book, and I dig that. This one, I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a really fun issue. I think one of the best parts of this book is easily the way Donny Cates writes the verbal interactions between characters. You can tell there's a lot of history dripping from every line. You don't have to do a lot of exposition to get an idea of who these characters are and what in relationship to each other. And I think that the dialogue is easily the strongest part. And I don't think there's also any downplaying Jeff Shaw's art in this book. I think he does a great job rendering these characters. I really like this book. I really dug this issue. I think this is actually a step up from issue 3. I think issue 3 was kind of more of a quieter moment. This is definitely a lot more action, a lot of cool splash pages, some great moments. And you already know what I'm going to say. My big problem with this book is the way Beta Ray Bill just keeps getting nerfed by Donny Cates. Like, he's intentionally going out of his way to really F up Beta Ray Bill, because I don't know if he's got a stick up his butt about Beta Ray Bill, or he just thinks it's fun to put this dude through the ringer, but as a Beta Ray Bill fan, I don't appreciate it that much.
Yeah, he's definitely the one who gets put through the ringer. No spoilers. But yeah, no, you said it. You took the words out of my mouth. It's definitely action-packed. It's fun. Out of all the issues, it's stuff that you kind of had that third issue that was a quieter issue that kind of progresses a story. It still progresses a story, but it's definitely trying to keep you more entertained, a little bit more explosions and stuff to kind of keep you engaged.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the action, there are times where I think it's very intelligently written in a way that I'm like, okay, we haven't seen somebody do this way before. I think that's kind of cool. With that, though, I'm going to give the book a 3.65 Viking Heavens.
Actually at 3.65 too.
All right, moving on to Spider-Man Life Story, issue number 2, The 70s. It's by Chip Zdarsky and Mark Bagley, or Bagley, however you want to say it, Andrew Hennessy and Frank D'Armata. And as somebody who really did not care all that much about issue 1, that felt like a pretty generic Spider-Man story, issue 2, do not sleep on, guys. If you are at all interested in this Spider-Man Life Story book, even if you're not, trust me, issue 2 is not at all, or issue 1 is not at all indicative of issue 2. Issue 2 is a complete departure from issue 1. You're not getting like that regular, just treading over the same material feel from this. This is very different, very new, very almost Elseworlds, but it feels organic. It feels like if Spider-Man were aging in real time, this is probably the kind of stories we would have been reading.
Yes, this is exactly what I was talking about. With the first issue, if you read it and you were kind of the same way that we were kind of on it,
yeah.
The thing is the whole idea of the story is that you're watching him age in different decades. And with the 60s, we've already seen Peter Parker at that age, at that time, and everything like that. This is where you start slowly getting to the part where it starts getting different. This is the part that you actually wanted from the story. And this is where you start getting to that, and I love this issue. I do like this reimagining idea with him and having him age, because I know that most comic book readers and Spider-Man fans have always had these questions.
Yeah, as a Spider-Man fan, as someone who's read a lot of Spider-Man, this book had a couple twists and turns I did not see coming. I was legitimately just slack-jawed. My jaw was on the floor a couple times when a few things happened in this book. I could not believe what I was reading, but I go, that makes so much sense. I can pinpoint where that is in the original mythology, but I could see the way they Zdarsky twisted it to fit this narrative, and I think it is absolutely brilliant. Issue 1 was not my thing. I didn't even pick it up. Issue 2, I loved it. I am picking up issue 1, and it's no secret that this is easily one of the best reads from Marvel this week. This book's getting a 4.4 Viking Heavens out of me.
Nice. I was at 4.5 Viking Heavens.
Yeah, this book was a hell of a hit. Huge sleeper.
I'm telling you, there's going to be some stuff in this book that really is going to like really mess with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. All right, moving on to Tony Stark Iron Man number 10 by Dan Slott and Jim Zub and Valerio Schiti. And I've been lukewarm on this series for the past, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 issues now. I haven't been digging it so much, but this issue brought me back. Thank goodness. I was even telling Josh earlier today that if this issue does not bring me back in, I'm probably going to be done picking up Iron Man, or I'm going to be tentatively picking up Iron Man. But this issue brought me back in. The kind of slog I had to get through the trenches in the last 3 issues or 4 issues or so, it all kind of pays off in this book. Yeah, it's slow going. Slott's really dragging it out, but this issue, I really dug this issue. It's not my favorite issue of the series so far, but it's enough to bring me back in, and this is not the finale. But my boy Iron Man, this finale is probably going to be on issue 11, my lucky number, so I'm cool with it. But I really did like this issue. There's some really good moments in it. There's in this book, Slott's just trying to tell you, this is not the Iron Man you remember. This is not Tony Stark that you remember. This is almost a brand new character, and it makes sense in a way from his death, the way he brought himself back. This is a new Iron Man. It's a different character, and I'm liking this take so far. But this book's going to get 3.3 Viking Heavens out of me.
Nice. And we both read Daredevil number 4, right? By Chip Zdarsky and Checchetto.
Marco Checchetto, yeah.
Yeah. So, this book right here, I can't speak enough about it. I'm so glad that there's a Daredevil run that I am actually super into again. And this book, Zdarsky just knows how to write for Daredevil. He knows how to write for Matt Murdock. He's put him in a place that we really never kind of seen him before, putting him in situations we've never seen him before. And this book, this issue right here, is so testosterone driven. If you are worried about your testosterone as a man,
if you've got low T.
Yeah, if you got low T.
Do you have low T? Do you find yourself lackadaisical throughout the day? Do you have a hard time? Just go ahead.
I love it. Okay. And then I want to prescribe you one issue of Daredevil by Zdarsky. Take it with some water and be ready to be like changing your underwear.
Make sure there's a set of weights nearby you.
Yeah. You're gonna have to get that out somehow.
This issue is just fantastic. I mean,
really
it. You love Frank Castle, you love Daredevil. If you're a fan of these characters, you love when they interact. You love their conflicting ideologies. This book, Zdarsky writes Castle a little bit more like Punisher from the Netflix series, where he's using the term red a lot, which I'm going, okay, this is his version of Punisher. I'm cool with it. This is them coming to blows, but dude, Daredevil is not to be outdone. He's not to be outshined. This book kills it, and that last panel of this book, I think I've got myself a new costume idea for Halloween this year. This thing is fucking rad.
Yeah.
I love this Daredevil, but not only is it testosterone fueled, but I think it's actually very smart. I think it's very intelligently written. I think the interactions between Frank and Matt are just so awesome. I mean, they're just it reminds me of Game of Thrones and like one-upping each other, in the conversation. Daredevil does that in this, and this book is getting a 4.1 Viking Heavens for me.
4.2 Viking Heavens for me.
All right. Moving on to Thor number 12 by Jason Aaron, and the artist is Mike Del Mundo. And if you're not a fan of Mike Del Mundo, I'm sorry. I really like his art. I think it works really well in here. But this issue is actually all Loki-centered. It's very Loki-centric. It's all about Loki, and he's conflicting, or not conflicting. He is coming face to face with past versions of himself,
it's
future
very
versions.
Charles Dickens.
It is. It's very much a Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
But I think it really works. I think it's really cool. And if you're wondering what happened in War of the Realms #1, this is actually a tie-in to that. This is kind of giving you an idea of what Loki's thinking, doing as he's. If you read War of the Realms #1, you know what happened there. It's taking place during that moment of that book. It's an interesting little read. It's a good introspection into the mind of Loki and how he's feeling about everything he's done so far and where he wants to go if things pan out the way he wants them to pan out. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it was not a bad little issue. Not close to my favorite Thor issue of this run though.
It wasn't my favorite issue of this Thor run so far, but I will say that this was a nice issue, especially if you read War of the Realms. If you wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit, what happens to Loki in that. this is a great issue to kind of pick up. I really enjoyed it. I did like it a lot, and I did like the humor that was placed in it. It was very well placed. Aaron does a good job at doing that.
Yeah.
And Del Mundo's artwork's fantastic. I like Del Mundo's art in
I do
Thor,
too.
but I really liked it in this issue. I feel like it was very well placed.
Yeah, and I like that this book is Jason Aaron kind of getting to play in his own sandbox, because multiple times he'll reference stuff he's written of Thor, but not even from this run, from past runs.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. This book's getting a 3.1 Viking Heavens from me.
3.25 Viking Heavens.
All right, moving on to War of the Realms, The Punisher, #1 by Jerry Duggan and Juan Ferreira. I believe that's no Marcelo Ferreira. Pardon me. And if you guys want testosterone fueled, you want the more Punisher this week. If you don't feel like you got enough from Daredevil, this Punisher book is brutal. It's awesome. It's hilarious. It's what I do like about it is, while the War of the Realms is so grand and so fantastical, this is really telling from the perspective of being like the boots on the ground in the street while this is happening. Yeah, there are people dying on the streets. This shit is not just like, oh, the heroes are in trouble. All the civilians in New York are in trouble, and all over the world. And Punisher's watching it all happen and unfold. It's brutal. It's kind of comical at times, but it is also very badass.
It is very badass. I mean, it's just, this is the testosterone. Like the other, like Daredevil has testosterone going in. This is literally nothing but that. This was actually a very fun issue. I haven't been a huge fan of Jerry Duggan as of lately, but I do like this. He seems to be a little at home at this. You can tell he doesn't feel as like he has to write some kind of like profounding thing. He can just go, I'm just going to write this dude killing and narking some trolls.
Yeah, and he has fun. It kind of reminded me of a little bit was the scene in The Dark Knight when the prisoners are all on a boat. It kind of reminded me of that in ways. And
It does, yeah, at times, yeah.
Yeah, and
I kept getting those like little senses in that.
Yeah, and I like that. The real question is this a necessary tie-in read to War of the Realms? As of now, I wouldn't say that it's a necessary tie-in. Like, you have to read this in order to understand issue 2 or to understand issue 1. I don't think you need to have it, but I would say it's a good complementary read.
I would say that it's a good companion read, yes. Is it a must-read? No, it's not a must-read. Would I recommend it if you was wanting to kind of expand that world a little bit for yourself?
And you wanted to have a little fun? Yeah.
It's definitely, I liked it better than the Journey into the Mystery tie-in from
Absolutely.
last week.
And it's the price of any other book. It's not it's not jacked up.
Yeah.
It's a $4.99.
Yeah, and we also read
we didn't give a
We didn't
rating.
give a rating?
Sorry, no, I got some in my throat. No, we
Okay.
gave a rating.
Okay, I will give you guys my rating. I'm going to give this one a 3.8 Viking
Oh,
Heavens.
wow, you're way higher. Okay, I'm at 3.3 Viking Heavens.
I liked it, man. I enjoyed it. All right, we also read War of the Realms War Scrolls. Now I'm about to cough up. It has 4 different stories. One is written by Jason Aaron with art done by Sorrentino. The second one is written by Josh Truvillo. See, this is what happens when you have me do this. And the art is done by Ricardo Ortez. Then there's another story by Ram V, and then it's drawn by Cafu. These are weird.
Yeah, I don't like these.
And then there's Howard
pseudonyms.
the Duck, Chip Zardarsky, and the
Joe
pencils.
Quinones.
Yeah, with ink assist by Joe Rivera.
So this issue, this is a tough one. It's really tough because I'm not sure if all the War Scrolls are going to have multiple stories going on inside of them, but I will say that I think that the Jason Aaron issue or part of the story with Daredevil is absolutely a must-read in my opinion. I really think you do need to read this book. I wouldn't say it's for issue 2, but I think in later issues it's definitely something you're going to need knowledge of. The rest of this book I really think you can possibly skip, and that's what really bugs me. I mean, I did like the Wolverine and Punisher thing, don't get me wrong, but I hated the Warriors 3. I absolutely hated the Warriors 3 part.
The artwork in it was not good. Once I saw the artwork in that, then I was instantly thrown off.
But it also felt like some stupid slapstick, like the Three Stooges kind of crap.
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate that. But I will say what is going on with them does directly tie into War of the Realms issue 2. But I don't think this is also a necessary read by any means for them. But the Daredevil in God Without Fear Part 1, I really do think that is a necessary read.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, even Marvel puts this down as a must-read companion. I think when they say that, it's mostly for the Daredevil thing. From what I understand from our order forms, that all the rest of the War Scrolls issues are going to have these like little tiny stories. They're usually only a couple pages long, except for the Warriors 3 that was a lot longer, but
Way
felt
too
even
long.
longer
Oh,
than
God,
that.
yeah.
The Howard the Duck one wasn't too bad. It was kind of fun, but those are not really must-reads. The Daredevil one is a must-read, and there is a note to read War of the Realms number 2 before you read War Scrolls, which we did not do.
No, I read it out of order, but I still don't feel like I missed anything. But I want to give it out to the Frank and Wolverine thing. That's a pairing I've always really liked, and to see them interacting and everyone bringing up Wolverine, weren't you dead? Like, how is that possible? Kind of thing. It's a cute little side eye to them basically still not telling us how Wolverine is basically come back to life. But War Scrolls as a whole, unfortunately, I can't just judge on the Daredevil part because I really love the Daredevil portion. I got to incorporate the other 75% in this book. This book's going to get a 2.5 from me. But if it was just the Daredevil stuff, I'd be willing to give this more like a 3.5.
I'm going to give it 2.6 if you do pick it up, because it is that one Daredevil they do say is a must-read. If you do pick it up, I say look out for the Sienkiewicz variant. It is fantastic.
All right, and we are moving on to the big cojones of this episode. Everything you guys have been looking forward to. War of the Realms, issue 2. Now, if you enjoyed issue 1, then then you're really hoping issue 2 follows up. I think issue 2 absolutely follows up. What it is going to be, it's $1 cheaper than issue 1. It's a $4.99 price point instead of a $5.99 price point. But you still get a lot of material in this book. A lot of things are going on. And if, like I said, if you have read Jason Aaron's Thor run since the God of Thunder stuff and all the way up until now, there's a lot of stuff going on in here that that are huge callbacks to things that were going on years ago in the comics. Seeds he started planting years and years ago that are finally starting to sprout up above the soil, and you're able to recall it. Wow, that's really been a long time coming, and I really appreciate that. But if you haven't been reading that kind of stuff, Josh, how do you feel?
I don't feel too lost. There's a couple of characters here and there that you might kind of be a little questionable on. You might want to go tug on the go on line, or look at your friend and be like, hey, do you know who this character is, or am I just kind of supposed to wait and see if they say something? But for the most part, I feel like you can still read this event and still understand it without having to go back and read the huge run of Thor done by Jason Aaron.
Yeah, and again, Russell Dodderman doing the interiors. I am so happy that this, so far at least, I don't know, I haven't checked, but I don't think anybody else is going to do the interiors on the main series other than Russell Dodderman, and I couldn't be happier about that. I think his art, it looks beautiful in this book. Jason Aaron, I think, is also a master at being able to give each character their own voice. Nobody sounds the same that way. It's always very distinguished on who's speaking, and there's just so much character coming through each person as they're speaking, and it has me very excited for issue 3. This is kind of the setting of the chessboard, I think. Issue 1 is the, oh crap, here's this thing that just got sprung on us. This is more of a setting of a chessboard kind of thing. I don't want to give too much away, but it's like, hey, here's what we need to do. Maybe we need to regroup and figure out, what's going on. That's this kind of issue, but still with a lot of flair.
Yeah, it's definitely still keeping that cinematic kind of organization to it. The one thing I do got to praise this, even though it's not this issue, it's kind of dealing with all of the War of the Realm tie-ins. I will say that Marvel has not been very good at the way they organize the tie-ins versus the main event and how they're released. Yeah. You got with Spider-Geddon and Infinity Wars, you'd get some tie-ins that came out, 2 weeks before that the main issue came out, and it kind of throws you off. This all kind of ties in really nicely together. The nice thing about it is, out of all the tie-ins from today, there is aspects of something that's from the main story that's in all those, kind of making it feel more real at time.
Absolutely. If you're picking up all of the tie-ins, you know exactly at what point in the main event these tie-ins are taking place, and you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah. But for the whole, this issue is great. If you haven't been reading Thor, Jason Aaron's Thor run, don't worry, you're still not going to be too lost. There is going to be a couple of characters here and there that might throw you off a little bit, but it's not anything that's going to really disturb your reading and understanding that this event is big and how it is, what exactly is the cause of this event. Right,
I think you can follow this pretty seamlessly, and if you have a couple questions, you could probably look them up on Google, but they're not ones that are going to detract you from understanding what's going on in the story. For this one, War of the Realms issue 2, I'm going to give this one a 3.85 Viking Heavens, and only because issue 1 I thought was such a great issue, and then this one is it's what I expected it to happen. It's pulling the things back a little bit and going, okay, we're really going to basically cocking the hammer back on the gun before we fire. That's kind of what this issue is.
I'm at 3.8.
Okay. All right, Josh, before we get out of here, what are the 3 issues from Marvel this week that you would recommend somebody picking up? If they have a very limited budget, and you go, if you can only pick up 3 books out of all these damn books we read today, which 3 would you put up and say you should get?
War of the Realms, Life Story number 2, and Daredevil number 4.
All right, guys, that is also my 3. Those are the 3 I would absolutely recommend. Daredevil issue number 4, War of the Realms number 2, and Spider-Man Life Story issue 2 as well. All of those fantastic reads. I think you could not get better bang for your buck with those 3 issues.
I will say, even though we reviewed this, I think there's probably only, out of all the issues that we've read, there's probably only 2 that I would say that you shouldn't even waste your money on. Everything else, though, I wasn't disappointed with everything.
No, there was nothing I hated this week. Yeah. So, guys, that is all we've got for you this week for the Marvel stuff. We know there was a lot to go through, so if you've got through it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please hit that like button. We're putting some hard, dedicated work into this. Comment below. Let us know your guys' thoughts on any of the books that we've covered. We pretty much covered everything from Marvel this week, so I don't think we left a whole lot out, to be honest. You can share this with your comic book reading friends, and we are inching our way closer to 1,000 subscribers, so if you're not already a subscriber, please help us get there by hitting that subscribe button, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.